let me say hello to my old pal Dave.
Well, we were talking offline too, and hopefully Dave listens to this. I think it's going to be appropriate to have a conversation with two great professors, Dave Collum and Professor Hanke. I think that'd be a fabulous talk, and people would get a kick out of it.
Well, the first time we met actually was he Dave was on an external review committee for the chemistry department at Johns Hopkins, and when he came down to Hopkins, we ended up nice summer day out in the middle of the sun, sitting on a bench talking about markets.
How long ago was this?
Oh, this probably 15 years ago.
So you guys go back 15 years, and can you,
Yeah.
and
So something like that. I lose track. Maybe it was more than that. I really can't remember. It could have very well been more than that, but it was some time ago.
and have you guys ever done a conversation together, a recording?
No, we do talk on the telephone and also on Zoom from time to time, but and email back and forth. But that's the only time we've been in person together.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to meet up with him this summer in upstate New York, and just to sit and chat with him for. I mean, I've chatted with him now probably for I don't know 30, 40 hours total on the show. But it's amazing to me, the people that I've been able to meet along the way, and now to get this chance to speak with you today. Thank you again. I want to start off with what's going on, the information that you have on Ukraine and what's happening there.
Well, I think that there are a variety of angles, but my angle that is corruption. And the first president of Ukraine was Kravchuk, and in 1992 he invited me to become one of his economic advisors, and I didn't do that because Mrs. Hanke and I concluded at that time that it was tangled up in such a web of corruption that it would be impossible to do any economic reforms that made much sense. So I didn't take up his invitation. That was back in 1992. So the corruption has been a big problem, and of course, wars always generate a lot of corruption. There's a lot of corruption associated with anything associated with the military-industrial complex, even in non-war situations. Remember the Pentagon's $600 toilet seat. That was back in the 1980s or something like that. But getting back to Ukraine, the latest revelation has been $100 million payback scheme that was engineered by one of Zelensky's close associates. And when that came up, that was about a week ago, maybe almost 2 weeks ago. It was brought by the Ukrainian anti-corruption investigators, and they have been put into gear mainly because of pressure by the United States. So that's kind of the tip of the iceberg. That's just small potatoes, because if we look at the total amount of money that's been pumped into Ukraine since 2022, it's about $360 billion. And out of that, I estimate that the corruption's running somewhere between 15 and 30% of that. The 30, probably towards the 30% line. That's what the auditors found with the involvement of the United States in Afghanistan. The corruption was running at 30% in Afghanistan. I think it's probably pretty close to that in Ukraine. So we're talking, Mike, about big bucks. We've got at 15%. The corruption money lining the pockets of the corrupt, 54 billion, and at 30%, it would be 108 billion. So basically, you got to pay to play.
And that 108 billion, say it's the 30% number. Uh, how many people is that distributed amongst, if you had to, in your estimation?
Uh, fairly small number that are taking the bulk of it. Of course, there's associated patronage and so forth going down from the oligarchs at the top, who are creaming most of it. But so a little of it trickles down, but it's skewed towards a very few at the top.
And yet this continues. The money just keeps getting pumped into this. And I mean, what were your expectations when Trump came back into office of where this was going to go?
Well, Trump said he was going to end it in 24 hours. I thought that was a very delusional statement. Uh, he's actually kind of backed away from the scene and dumped it on the Europeans' laps, and the Europeans just keep doubling down on this. The war is basically lost. You know, it's over. But the Europeans keep doubling down, want to dump even more money into it, and fueling nothing more than this huge amount of corruption. So it will end badly.
But you know,
Uh,
it's oh, go ahead, sorry.
yeah, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, you know, it feels like it's been lost for a very long time, and yet it just keeps going and going and going.
Well, it keeps going. It's basically, it's just destroying Ukraine. That's 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 ultimately what's happening. And the Russians have made it very clear what their terms are and will be. They haven't changed since day one, and I don't think they will change. And it will finish on the battlefield, and I think finish badly for Ukraine and the West in general for supporting such an insane operation.
How much longer do you think this can go for?
Well, I'm not in the business of making this kind of military projections, and my crystal ball actually is in the closet today, Mike. So I really don't know.
Yeah, and I asked that because it's, you know, I felt like 2 years ago it was close to ending, and yet here we are, and it's still just going and going and going. And it's like how many?
I think the one of the big factors is military personnel. The young Ukrainians, a, a lot of them are in Germany and Poland right now because they don't want to fight, and 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 they don't want to go into the Russian meat grinder. Basically, they know what's going to happen to them. They're going to get killed, so that they are very short of military personnel and rather short of money and munitions, and right across the board. They've really got their back up against the wall. I think you can forget the Western propaganda. Things are going very poorly from the Ukrainian point of view. And Europe will of course have trouble swallowing such a loss when it occurs, and perhaps that's one reason they keep doubling down.
Well, and also with this, I mean, you know, the state of Europe right now economically. I mean, how much? You know, how long can they keep this going for?
This is the big story here is that sanctions have really put a damper on Europe's current and potential growth in the future because, for example, the big engine in Europe was Germany, and Germany lived off cheap Russian gas. That's essentially been cut off, and in addition to that, nuclear power has been cut off in Germany. So they've got solar and wind, and the energy prices in Germany have gone through the roof. And as a result of that, the manufacturing sector is withering away at a very rapid rate. Most European countries, about 12% of GDP is accounted for by manufacturing. In Germany, it's about double that. So I anticipate that the deindustrialization of Germany will take them down to kind of European average levels. But this is a huge wrecking ball. So the sanctions have just been a complete disaster for Germany. And in general, most of Europe is paying an enormous cost.